Hey, Jordan, how's it going?
Hey, Rob. You see this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty exciting shit.
Yeah, I know. I'm feeling pretty good. I
Yeah,
saw a lot of doom and gloom on the timeline, and I don't really get it. I'm
don't
fired
either.
up. I'm fired up right now.
Yeah, it's you have like the purist far left who, of course, they find an issue with everything, but I'm pretty excited about these results.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into this. Like, I haven't talked to you since yesterday. Like, what's your main takeaway? I know we lost Virginia, but it's not the end of the world, right? What's your takeaway from all this?
Well, I just think that this is a wake up call. This, if anything, the silver lining here is they're going to wake up. Democrats are going to wake up.
Yeah.
They're going to realize that we need to win elections. We need to run candidates everywhere.
Yeah.
It seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and just like, obviously, I feel like it's the final nail in the coffin. We got to stop running like these woke left-wing candidates like Terry McAuliffe in Virginia. We try to appeal to the young crowd with that kind of, like, basically a borderline socialist, and it's just obviously people are rejecting it. It's a center-right country, and we have to start running candidates that are gonna speak to those values. No more of these left-wing guys. It's more ammunition when we kind of make these arguments.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't run on things that are just too extreme. I think this is just, we need to get down to the trenches, and we need to just spend all of our time saying, "Nuh-uh, that's not true," to every mention of critical race theory hysteria that the right has to offer. That is what's going to get Democratic voters fired up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Rob, I don't know if you saw in Minnesota, but the voters shut down a proposal by activists to redo the police department, make a community policing division that would have included police. But I think that's a firm rejection of this defund the police nonsense that has been killing Democrats nationwide. We cannot have activists proposing alternatives, policy alternatives to how things are done now.
And I think the most important thing, because we've been getting killed on this, conservatives have been going nonstop talking about how liberals and Democrats want to defund the police. And now I think we can firmly say they'll never be able to say that again, right? Now that we've kind of put our weight behind this, they'll never be able to use that attack line ever again. So
yeah, and in Cleveland, we saw a candidate who successfully beat Nina Turner in the primary, again a rejection of progressives. And this is where I think exemplifies bipartisan support. This is somebody who had Trump donor money, Republican super PAC money, and billionaire money, all come together in unison in a show of unity in the
Israel lobby as well was in there
to keep Nina Turner out. And I just think there is hope for the country when you have bipartisan efforts like that. It's beautiful.
That's called democracy, and I love it. I mean, speaking of this stuff, it brings us back to that reconciliation bill. And I know that Insurgents board member Joe Manchin is working really hard on making sure that that's not, it can be spending too much money. It's not going to be too left wing. It's not going to be too extravagant. Is there any way, because I know they've cut quite a lot out of there. Can we reach out to our sources in the White House? Is there any chance they can cut even more out of that? Because I think the sense that I'm getting is the more that they cut out of that, expanding Medicare to people, the environmental stuff, just get all that out of there. I feel like the more they cut it, the better the success rate is going to be in this coming midterm election. So I think we got to really hammer that home to our sources in the White House there.
Yeah, absolutely. What working people in America care about most is the deficit. So the more we can cut out, the better everyone is going to feel. Working people across the country, by and large, number one issue is reducing the federal deficit. So this is an opportunity for the Democrats. We'll see if they take it.
Hell yeah. On to 2022.
Let's go, baby.
We're going to crush it. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's the Insurgents, episode 84. We got Rob and Jordan here. How's it going, Jordan? How are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay. not a lot to work with there. We do have our friend Luke O'Neill from Welcome to Hell World, the Substack, also the author of the book Hell World, and the sequel Lockdown in Hell World. Going to be joining us in just a few minutes. Excited to talk to him. Luke's a really cool guy. We talked a little bit about the elections that happened the other night, and overall the sense of sort of disillusionment and disappointment that I think a number of people are feeling right now, when you kind of look at the United States and where things seem to be headed. But I think there's a couple of things we didn't touch on that I wanted to get your opinion on, because when it comes to these elections, you mentioned India Walton, right? That was one thing. We got into that a little bit last week.
Yeah. That was somebody who won the primary. She was open Democratic Socialist. And she, after winning the primary, the current mayor, Byron Brown, tried to get on the ballot through some like other party. I can't remember, like made a party even maybe. And
yeah, didn't concede, I thought my outside understanding was in these situations, you lose a primary, you're supposed to be like, okay, well, the better person won. Congratulations. Not so in this case. Apparently,
well, it depends on where you are.
Yeah,
it depends on where you are.
Right.
Some places have like sore loser laws or sore loser rules where you can't just get back in the race when you lose. New York does not, and that's why people were concerned when AOC beat Joe Crowley. They thought he was going to do that. So this is what Byron Brown did. He tried to get on the ballot, and eventually, at the very, very late in the game, they said, no, you can't do that. So he waged a write-in campaign, and they rallied their supporters, and he ended up winning because of that. So I don't know how people can feel inspired by that or feel comfortable with that, but here we are.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the frustrating thing, right, is that people tell you, like, well, don't just complain. You got to do something, right? Go run for something if you want to change things. Don't just yell at politicians. Go run for something. And then this consistent phenomenon of people like India Walton who are like, okay, and they go and do that. And then you have the most powerful people in this very, very well-connected political party completely go against everything and just like completely pull out every stop, get all the dark money involved and Republican money and real estate developers and all these people that are involved in the sort of machine of Democratic Party politics to ensure that that someone like India Walton can't actually win, even though like what she was actually proposing would have been really transformative and really helpful to a lot of poor and working class and racialized people in Buffalo. It would have been, really, really important victory for them. But they're so wedded to this idea of keeping their specific vision moving forward at all costs of this kind of like relentless neoliberalism that they'll put all the stops, even when someone does exactly that. They do, they run for something, they do everything right. And then it's still not enough. And it's got to be really, really demoralizing for anyone that's on the outside looking in, that's kind of wondering, like, maybe that's something, if I want to change things in my community, if I want to change things for my friends and my family, that's how I can do it. And it's like a total slap in the face to anyone that was maybe considering this idea that you can get involved with the Democratic Party and make things slightly better in your community. Because you see that when you're an outsider and when you threaten this kind of status quo that they come to represent, they'll pull out all the stops to ensure that you're not able to win.
Yes, it came on the heels of, or this write-in campaign and this push to oust her, also came on the heels of the Buffalo Bills, whose owners are worth like $5 billion. After she won the primary, said, oh, you know what? We want a new stadium now, and if we don't get it and the taxpayers don't pay 100% of the bill, we're going to move. So, this is a potential giveaway to billionaires in Buffalo on the line, too, that didn't really get discussed enough. But potentially them, voters in Buffalo electing Byron Brown over India Walton could ultimately cost them like maybe a cool $1 billion in a tax giveaway to a billionaire family for a new Bill stadium. So there are consequences to this, and she was running on an equitable, economic first policy and proposal. And so much for the elect black women, mantra that we've
the backbone
heard.
of the party, apparently.
Yeah. Except when she's to my left, as the McSweeney's article writes. It's just it's so fucking frustrating, man.
You also mentioned that initiative that failed in Minneapolis about the community policing, the shift that they were trying to make there, which I also understand is really demoralizing and frustrating for people, especially coming from like where the nexus of where those George Floyd protests like initially kicked off, and it's where it is a site of like a lot of police violence. And I understand that activists do have a somewhat tricky line to try and follow when you're convincing these communities to get on board with this somewhat radical project to just reimagine how these things work. But that is one area, though, I think that people should be encouraged. The fact that like they got to that point, I think it's such a rebuke of like what the status quo has been when it comes to policing, that even though this initiative failed, I think people should be encouraged that those conversations are happening. And like I said, like I do understand that some communities, like some, even it's like, some immigrant communities and other communities have real fears when it comes to this idea of defunding the police and what that would mean. And I do think it is going to be possible over a longer period of time to educate people on why these things are so important, and can hopefully lead to actual genuine reform in that area eventually. But again, like it is, I understand also why it's just really upsetting for people that these initiatives that were really close to materializing, that would have meant real profound change. It's frustrating to come close to feeling like these things are on the horizon and then having to get set back like that.
Yeah, I talked about this with Max Collins from Eve 6 on Deep Dive a couple weeks ago. We were talking about people we didn't like, and he said one of his is Matt Iglesias. And people like him, and there's many people like this, revel in these moments. Like, haha, told you this person can't win. And it's just like, what are you doing to help, though? Like, what are you doing to change these problems that you assure us you take seriously and you want to do something about? What are you doing? And it's always nothing. And I think it takes like a strong person to certainly run on these ideas, because they're not like maybe politically viable, but they're not as common, or people don't understand them to be as common as they are, and people perceive them as extreme. This is in large part because of corporate media and politicians who just want to cling to power. And to do that, you're going against the current. And I think that takes a strong person to do. And certainly I think people who advocate for these things, especially in their free time, are noble. And it's irritating when you have people like these kind of like election experts who just be like, well, told you this person can't win. It's like, well, what are you doing? What are you doing to help?
Yeah.
And I think it's just like, for them, it's gratifying because their perceived enemies lost. But the end result is these issues that, again, they assure us they take seriously are never addressed or never sufficiently addressed. So I find it really frustrating these moments when you have people like that who are like, haha, told you. It's like, dude, you're worthless. You're fucking worthless. You're standing idly by as these things continue, these systems and the environment continues to deteriorate, and these systems continue to inflict pain and suffering on people. Like, worthless people.
Yep. And I think just as a general trend, it feels a little bit like the writing is kind of on the wall for like where this is going for like the Democratic Party over the next couple of years. And it seems a lot like history is kind of about to repeat itself. And that I think is probably the most depressing thing at all, because I feel like there was an opportunity to potentially avoid that scenario that feels a little bit like it's been squandered at this point. Which, is not going to mean good things for the people of the United States or anywhere else, really. But we're going to talk about that with Luke O'Neill. This sense of disillusionment. Luke is someone that's very adept at capturing that, both on the page and in podcast form. So I think we should bring on Luke now to talk about this stuff. Again, really good talk. I think everyone's going to enjoy it. Luke O'Neill of Welcome to Hell World will be joining the show right after this. So sometimes you start off the recording and you jump right into that. And now we're here with, like I said, though, sometimes I'd like to try and capture some witty banter. And that's always difficult to manufacture out of nowhere, right? It's tricky. That's a tricky line to cross. I mean, earlier you were saying all kinds of wacky stuff that you probably, for your sake, it's better that it was not being recorded, because there's all kinds of what I thought was pretty controversial opinions being expressed, but we don't need to get into that. But
well, that's I mean I don't really feel like I can speak freely anymore on account of cancel culture.
Yeah,
it is a problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, unfortunately, I'm being muzzled by the woke mob, but that's just it's only going to make me more powerful. Once I'm going to watch my Substack numbers go up.
Yeah, that's how it works. I'm pretty sure we're all on Substack.
Yeah,
so we're free. We're free from that kind of censorship.
Yeah, we can say whatever we want, and we just have to spend a lot of money to have our blogs hosted.
Yeah, exactly. And it's weird. I've been saying whatever I want, but no one really gets mad enough at us to like really put a big, boost into the sub numbers.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to, apparently the way to do it is you have to make a massive spectacle of yourself day in and day out.
Right.
Which I'm just not really comfortable doing.
No, I mean, I've certainly had my moments, but I'm not interested in, I'm just not interested in being like, in the center of some bullshit every single day, it's like exhausting. Like, obviously we've all, started some shit on Twitter or gotten into shit, and but the people that seem to like crave it every single day is just baffling to me. Are we going, by the way? It was just like
fake, this is the banter. Yeah. So you see how the expert broadcaster, professional broadcaster, I initiated the banter, but with a meta twist, referencing it. See, this is how I operate.
Okay, well, if you run any of that I just said, I'm going to sue you. So
what distinguishes, though, like the blowback that we would get versus the people on Substack for what they get, because their controversy so often veer into like deliberate targeting of trans people and transphobia, questioning their validity as humans, and singling out specific people who are relatively powerless, and trying to make them into these like grand villains. Like, they don't get the blowback that like the right-wing media infrastructure will subject people like on our side to. Like, I remember you had a kind of a tongue-in-cheek tweet about like, I think, spitting in Bill Kristol's food, and that was like a Fox News cycle for a few days.
Right. No, it was,
like,
it was.
I didn't realize you were a Fox News veteran as well. That's cool.
No, it was a Boston Globe story, which made it even worse, because that's the thing that happens when people on the left or whatever get canceled. They're not really like, nobody gives. I'm not famous. Nobody. I'm not powerful or that well known. But what they're trying to do is take a chunk out of the Boston Globe, which is a liberal institution. And so I feel like that's the difference with the way it usually works coming from the other direction is, or they're trying to take down Harvard or whatever school it is. Like, nobody gives a shit about me or whatever some, dumb fucking professor says. It's just like an opportunity to use the person to sort of denigrate what is widely known. Everyone on the right has heard of the Boston Globe, so it's just like another chance to sort of bring them down a peg. But
or like, this random Canadian guy proves that all liberals secretly love MS-13 and think they're cool and good.
Right.
That wasn't the point. Yeah, in that case, that was true, but usually this is more of an exaggeration.
Right. But no, I don't know. It is kind of, I talk a lot of shit about Substack, but it has actually been a huge boon to my life. It changed everything for me. And I'm able to make a living off it. I feel very fortunate. And so, it's not all bad. And there are actually lots of good people on there doing good work. I just feel bad that it's become synonymous with like transphobia, and cancel culture. And I don't like, another thing, I can see if you want to be a transphobe or whatever. I mean, I don't like it and I think it sucks, but like, I can see like doing an article about that like every now and again, but I don't really get how there's enough in the well to go back to like every week, like a lot of these people seem to do. It kind of blows my mind, like how much meat is there on that bone before you start repeating yourself every time.
Yeah, I think it's the reaction. There are a couple people who have a Substack together who are well-known transphobes, and they make that the focus of their work. One even had a magazine cover story, and they were tweeting about their most recent episode yesterday. One of the hosts was and said, and they had I guess a hypothetical discussion on their show, "Whoa, would you have sex with a trans person?" Yeah. And they said, "Yeah, only if they had 4 legs and a long mane," comparing trans people to horses. And it's just whoa. I read it and I was angry, but it's I forced myself not to respond or try to dunk on them because that's what they want. It's what fucking feeds their enterprise.
I mean, the politics and the sensitivity of that aside, you just have to admit it's just a really well-constructed joke, It just really sings the humor of that.
Yeah, of course.
It's just real good. So, I mean, as a fan of comedy, I think comedians, if nothing else, are the last truth tellers we have,
Yes.
And if we start censoring them, what happens next? My big thing is that everything is a slippery slope. So whenever one thing happens, the worst possible thing slightly related to that automatically always is going to happen. That's kind of how I live my life, and that's my politics. Everything is a slippery slope.
One thing that when it comes to the Substack folks and some of the bigger names that are on there kind of creating this kind of weird reactionary narrative, the constant obsession with pointing out hypocrisy in liberal media, just saying well, liberals were mad at Trump for doing X, but now they think it's okay when Biden is doing the same thing. And it's okay, yeah, sure. Liberals are hypocrites. They're annoying. Liberal media bad. I agree with most of these stances, but is that something that we need to talk about and get into the nitty gritty of these inane culture war battles day in and day out? It's so not interesting to me. And when I see some names with who have amazing, talent, people that I used to admire and respect and look up to, kind of descending into this, it's just kind of what is, it's just depressing. I don't understand the fascination with it.
It really is. You know what? I think we should even let's not even talk about this anymore. It's I think it's a bummer.
It is. Yeah. No, I know.
We could talk about
my banter is taking a dark turn now. It's unfortunate.
We could talk about Joe Manchin getting harassed by protesters today. Jordan, you were all over that, I saw.
Yeah. Well, we should talk about that. Before we do, I'll just make sure that everyone knows that we are speaking to Luke O'Neill, the author of the Welcome to Hell World on Substack, which is also turned into the book Hell World, followed by the sequel Lockdown in Hell World. Luke, we're really happy you could come on the program.
Thanks,
to talk
guys.
to us about this.
It's nice to hear your voices after usually just communicating in the DM with our discontents group that we should also plug here. And I actually think, to get back to Substack just for 1 second, I think it's really cool what we're doing there. We got such a cool lineup of really talented people doing great work and across the whole spectrum of fields, and it would be great if people paid more attention to it, as we've been talking about.
Yes, it's a constant source of frustration for me, actually.
Yeah, me too. I don't understand why. I think I said this in the DM the other day, but if a website launched and it had all of these people that are involved in it on the masthead, everyone would be like, holy shit, right?
Yeah.
And yet, it's doing fine or whatever. I'm not, it's just
no, of course. But I guess that's what I mean. That's my source of frustration. That's why I brought it up. It's just, it seems like it should be enough to have such a great cast of characters doing great work. That should be enough, I feel. But it really seems like in order to take that next step, it really involves making this constant spectacle of yourself, which I feel like no one that is involved with these projects are ever really interested in.
No, yeah, everyone seems like they just as soon not field hundreds of shitty comments every day. If anything else, that's my motto is these days is I have no interest in like, I don't know, I just don't want to like toss a grenade into the timeline anymore and like, oh, I'm going to shake things up and, you know, tell it like it is. And then it's just like not worth it. Like the constant stream of shitheads you get in your mention for saying anything, you know, too provocative. I just want to kind of, you know, chill out, share my articles, talk about Weezer and Deftones all day. And that's about it, you know?
Yeah.
But Luke, before we get going any further, we have to ask you, because we've asked everybody. We like to get people on the record on this question. It's a bit controversial. Mm-hmm. But Luke, are you a gamer?
I am not a gamer, but it's not for. I mean, first of all, I'm old, but secondly, I was a gamer. I just kind of let my skills subside. I think I probably stopped playing games like 10 years ago, not for any reason, just because like I always had roommates or who had, you know, were always keeping up on whatever the latest system was, so I would just play theirs. And then once it was just me and my wife, I never got a system, so it just kind of fell by the wayside. But you know, I can like, it seems like I can't even imagine, like just from like paying attention a little bit, it seems like things are so much more advanced than they were like even 10 years ago, and I don't even know if I could, you know, wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the multiplayer and especially the battle royale format, like the explosion of that over the past several years has really taken over. Now every game wants to have like a battle royale mode, including Tetris.
Really? I think I stopped, like, I mean, maybe it was even longer than that, after like, maybe like the second or third Halo, or like the second, what was the one, Prince of Persia? Is that what's the one where you jump around and solve puzzles and shit?
I'm pretty sure that's all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I love that shit, but yeah, for just some reason, I don't know, I just decided to well, I didn't decide to give it up. It just kind of, you know, it atrophied. My gaming brain atrophied.
Yeah. Jordan, do they have like microtransactions in Tetris now? Like you can pay to get the big long one if you need to get the big Tetris?
I don't know if it's that specific or real time, but I think there is like add-on bonus content for the Tetris 99 is what it's called. I haven't played it in a while.
Come on.
I'm sure there's like skins that you can buy to get like different backgrounds. Every game has that bullshit now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that to let you guys down like that.
That's all right.
I suppose we can continue anyway.
Yeah. You still want to talk?
We'll find it within ourselves to continue talking about it.
Once a gamer, always a gamer. So you have it deep down in you.
It's really more of an ethos or a mindset. Yeah. It never really goes away.
No, oh, for sure. It's inside of me. It's just, it's like, it's you know, it's like waiting to be unlocked again, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I just watched Dune, so I'm thinking about, you know, what's his name? Paul has all these inherent powers inside of him waiting to be unlocked. And I guess I guess I'm kind of like the Dune of gamers.
Okay. Are you doing pills now?
I've been saying it, but I'm glad you finally acknowledged it.
I felt a little nervous about admitting that in front of everybody, but I'm glad we got it out there. Did you guys like Dune?
I did, yeah. I'm a Dune head from way back. You know, I've read the books. Should I read it? I keep getting mixed signals, and like I'm a sci-fi guy. You know, even though I'm not a gamer, I'm still have a lot of fucking nerdy tendencies. I'm a comic book guy and a sci-fi guy. Yeah.
And, but for some reason, I never got to Dune. You know, even though I was like,
well, it's a really intimidating kind of mythology.
Yeah.
What I would say is yes to just reading the first book.
Right.
Maybe you can read the second one, Dune Messiah, but it's really not necessary. It kind of in my opinion, it deteriorates in quality. The universe expands so much, the mythology expands so much that it goes so far beyond the relatively simple story that's being told in the first one that you kind of like, you go so far away from that it starts to be about all kinds of different stuff. But definitely recommend checking out that first one, especially if you want to see what's going to happen. And if you're Dune pilled, if you saw the movie,
yeah, for sure,
you want to see where it's going.
And the thing I really love the world building of the movie. I mean, it's not new, but it was new to me, so it was like, you know, tickling my brain in the way that like great sci-fi does, where like especially parts where they just like sort of stop by some planet for like, you know, 2 or 3 minute scene, and it's like really well designed, and then they leave and you're like, oh, what the fuck is that place about? You know, like that's what I sort of love, is the sort of hinting at things, and you can, you know, you fill in the rest with your imagination.
Yeah. That was one thing that I think the original David Lynch version really struggled with too, because partially I think because of studio interference, there's such this huge expansive mythology and backstory. They wanted everything to be explained at length. So there's all these digressions, there's voiceover narration. Every character is like, you can hear what their thoughts are specifically, and it gets to be so much. And I did like that in that new version, how they do just kind of like put you in a certain situation and allow you to sort of figure out the backstory just from the context, rather than banging you over the head with exposition and explaining every single little thing.
For sure.
That was cool.
My one criticism was kind of unfair in that a lot of the stuff that have become like well-worn tropes are in the movie, but it's like not Dune's fault that it was influenced like the past, you know, 60, 50 years, whatever it's been of sci-fi, you know, like Game of Thrones shit in there and Star Wars shit, and like, wait, it came before Star Wars, right? 60s, wasn't it? The book? Yeah. So, you know, but that's like an unfair thing to be like, oh, this, you know, chosen one shit, you know, The Matrix obviously was influenced by it, and but yeah, I think I might read the book. So thank you for pushing me over the edge there, Rob.
Yeah, that's what I do.
What do you guys think about? So it's an interesting thing. This is something that I think about. Like, if you mentioned the double standard thing earlier, you know, these kids are protesting Manchin. They're yelling at him. They're getting in front of his car, and I think there is a tendency. So let's say people were doing that to AOC or whoever, is that we're, you know, the handful of politicians that people on the left, you know, kind of like, would we be like, no, that's beyond the pale, that's over the line, they shouldn't be doing that. But I think the difference is what those people would be protesting her for is something really dumb that doesn't matter, you know? So like, you can take this stuff on a case by case basis, right? Like, you know, storming the Capitol and all that shit. I mean, in theory, why not? But it just happened to be for the dumbest fucking cause that I've ever heard of. You know what I mean?
I mean, things are not in a vacuum, just good or bad. Like, if you're doing a possibly good thing for a bad reason, then you don't have to support it. And it would be different if different people were doing it for a good reason. It would be different. It's not hard to like make this distinction. You don't have to have this blanket.
No, I don't think I don't think that's a double standard. You know, like if, you know, same thing with like, you know, mask and vax protests or whatever. Like, great, you know, it's great. It's great that people are being active in the, you know, political realm and voicing their opinions and yelling at their politicians, but it just happens to be for something really fucking stupid. So I don't have to, you know, while I might appreciate the methods, you know, I don't, the message behind them is, you can say like they don't match up, you know?
Yeah. I think we've seen that play. I mean, even look at the Let's Go Brandon.
Yeah, I was going to say Let's Go Brandon, yeah.
It's so fucking stupid. But like libs acting like this is some serious issue that we have to start,
airline
like,
pilot
addressing.
Said, "Let's go Brandon." He should lose his job.
Cares?
Like,
like they all just screamed fuck Joe Biden or fuck Trump like for 4 years and longer, like in the campaign. You walk around DC and it is all the graffiti. It's stickers, it's posters, it's like art. Fuck Trump was like a rallying cry for the resistance. And now they're acting
good for them.
aggrieved because someone dares to say fuck Joe Biden in a coded way.
Well, I mean, I think the only thing that's bad about it is that I'm just not saying fuck Joe Biden because, fuck Joe Biden. Like,
yeah, just say it. Who gives a shit? You feel better when you just say it.
Right. Like, I don't think... I'm certainly not going to take offense on behalf of Joe fucking Biden,
Yeah. But like you said, it's like the only thing that's different is that even though I'm not like, I'm obviously not like offended by it or anything, you can say whatever you want. I don't really care. But all of the reasons that these people think that it's good to say fuck Joe Biden are probably not reasons that I would agree with. And all the things that I would say fuck Joe Biden over, his long history of supporting mass incarceration and imperialism,
right,
and the neoliberalism and all these terrible things that he stood for throughout his career. That's why I would say fuck Joe Biden. But they probably like agree with a lot of these things. Right, and they say it because they think that he's like a secret communist who wants to dilute the white race by giving people evil vaccines or whatever the fuck,
Right.
So that's the difference there.
Yeah, and we don't have to, like, just because some right-wing guy hates Joe Biden, like, I don't find fellowship with them for that. You know, it's like, well, congratulations, you have like a baseline decent opinion. That doesn't mean we're on the same side. That doesn't mean we have anything to work towards in common, But, I think, again, we can just agree that whatever you want to say about it, the Let's Go Brandon is just really funny. It's just perfectly constructed piece of comedy,
Yeah.
And they say that the right is getting better at comedy and it's scaring the left, and I have to agree,
Yeah, it is true.
You guys got to give me at least give me a little something, little courtesy chuckle.
I was just skimming an article that I think just got published that kind of pertains to Manchin and his role in gutting this Build Back Better reconciliation plan, and the proposal, like the tax proposals and potential estate tax, it sounds like are now going to be removed from the bill. So another way to pay for it through redistribution and taxing the wealthy is going to be removed. And in exchange, they're going to enact a nicotine levy, which...
What?
I need the stats. Yeah, I figured that one would hit hard with you. But will, disproportionately impact the working class. There's much more working class smokers than there are billionaires or vapors, whatever you do.
Right.
And this is how they're gonna, make it, deficit neutral. In part.
It has anything good? Like, I stopped paying attention to what's in and out on a daily basis like a week ago or so. Like, it's just like every day something was in, something was out, and so I don't really know where we're at. Like, weren't they saying yesterday that the paternal leave is going back in or something? Is that in still? 4 weeks?
You pop that baby out, you get 4 weeks, then you're back to work.
Wow. That's very, very generous.
Thank you.
And and then I think that what was the other thing that I don't know, is anything going to survive in terms of expanding Medicare and like down for dental
hearing?
Hearing.
Yeah.
That's all.
I think dental's still out. Hearing is in, so you can listen. You can listen to your grandkids, but you have to talk to them through your raw gums,
your dentures. That brings me to something I wrote about last week on Hell World, which is an interview with a dentist. And he was talking about how fucking powerful the American Dental Association is, and how he gets emails from them every day, being a dentist, saying how we can't let this expansion of Medicare pass, and like they're really like I didn't realize this until I was writing about it, but they're like, I think they're like the best funded of any sort of medical related associations, and they really do not want any of this to happen, which is fucked up, of course, And then, we sort of got into this dentist works for like one of these corporate dental chains that are kind of popping up, more and more, like Gentle Dental and Aspen Dental and all these, not those two. He just talked about like basically, if you're wondering if like your dentist is trying to like churn and burn you and give you things that you don't want or don't necessarily need, but kind of need. But they are doing that, is what he told me. Like they're under intense pressure to do crowns, on as many teeth as possible all the time because they can charge a lot for that. Like when. Haven't you guys ever gone to the dentist and they tell you like, oh yeah, you're gonna need this tooth fixed, that tooth fixed, and then you're like, is this guy fucking with me? And sadly, I think he is. It's fucked up.
Tooth mechanic.
Yeah, tooth. And the other, like one detail that I really loved or hated, I guess, that he told me is that every day at his, this corporate chain, they send out an email with the leaderboard. So which dentist did the most, billed the most that day. And they do it like all the way down. So if you had a slow day or something, or, maybe you weren't able to usher in as many patients as you possibly could into the day, that your name will be down there at the bottom of the list. And obviously, I think we can all assume what the implications are if you're on the bottom of the list, too often. So there's a very much, not only is there an incentive to do as much work as possible, but they're shaming the people who don't get on board with that sort of thing.
These are the things that don't get mentioned in conversations around like a for-profit healthcare model and why distancing ourselves from it and switching to an alternative universal care plan would be a better alternative as the rest of the developed world has. Like, I'm glad you're doing it, but like that never, I've never heard of anything like that. And certainly not in even many policy discussions. So it's good that you're doing it, but we need much more coverage of that kind of stuff.
I know.
That's horrifying. Like the incentives are so clear that people are just going to insist that you need to do X, Y, and Z.
And, again, that is one of the good things that I like about, doing a newsletter on my own is that, I, for many years wrote for all the, traditional publications, and you couldn't just talk. Like, one of the things I like to do is just like talk to a guy and be like, what's the deal with what you do? And you can't publish that sort of thing in like a newspaper or, a traditional news website. You can certainly I could quote a dentist saying that, but then I'd have to mix it in with, a couple other dentists who'd say that doesn't happen. And then I'd have to talk to the fucking head of the, Gentle Dental to get their point of view. And it's just like, no, I don't want to hear the justifications for why this happened. I don't want to be buried in bullshit, and obviously these big companies are good at burying reporters in bullshit. And as we've seen, as we know, we've known this for a while, but there was like a good example of it this week that even the editors at, the New York Times are the most credulous fucking morons. Well, I don't know if they're dupes or they're just complicit, like what was the thing with, what's his name the other day that was kind of a big thing. I'm going to need
more info.
Thomas Friedman, the aliens thing?
Yeah. Who's the New York Times guy who sucks? No, that doesn't narrow it down.
He's like a complete dipshit blowhard, just always writing bad columns.
Real sensitive, doesn't take any criticism well. He was doing like a Selena Zito thing, where he characterized some fucking Republican operative as like a centrist. Like the shit they do all the time now.
Yeah.
It's like, it's bad enough when Fox News does that. They do like, mother of four was worried that, children are being taught to hate themselves by, CRT teachers. And then it turns out the mother in question is like the head of the local county Republicans or whatever.
Yeah. How old are your kids? Well, 45.
Right.
Is the youngest.
I love that story the other day, even though it was old, about coming out of Virginia, like the thing that they kind of ended the campaign with about that kid who like was having nightmares from reading Beloved or whatever. Like,
yes.
Like, how I mean, I'm sure this kid's a fucking turd, but I just thought it was so funny. Like, imagine your mom calling up the newspaper and be like, my 18-year-old son is crying himself to sleep every night because of his homework.
Which then goes viral, gets seen by millions of people.
Right. And
he read a book that was very upsetting to him, and he was sad and crying after.
I always kind of feel that way, like, and this is a different type of thing, but you know how every now and again there'd be some things like, nobody came to my son's, my 7-year-old son's birthday party. Can we get it going viral and make everyone feel better? It's like, obviously that I feel bad for the kid, but it's like, do you really need to turn your kid's humiliation into content? Like that's like,
is this about him or her? Or is it about you? That's
like all of a sudden 1 million people have seen that nobody likes your kid. Like, is that? But
yeah, the birthday's suddenly better as soon as mom gets 100,000 retweets.
Right. Like, look at all this engagement, honey. I don't know.
You get a couple like sports guys getting in there.
Right. It's like
in the comments.
Yeah, it's like, oh mom, like, oh honey, look, fucking Marcus Smart from the Celtics knows you have no friends. Like when it's just, I don't know.
Everyone knows you're just an unlikable.
All your favorite heroes are now fully aware that you're a fucking loser.
Right.
No one came to your Pokemon birthday.
I don't know, man. People love to post, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, they do. They sure do. No, but I mean, even going back to the stuff you're talking about, these dental practices and just like the way that the idea of dental health being part of healthcare has just been completely abandoned.
Yeah.
Which is pervasive in Canada as well, right? We brag in Canada about our single payer healthcare system, but again, dental doesn't count. It doesn't count as healthcare. All the bones inside your body count. As soon as the bones are in your mouth, though, then you got to pay up or you got to have a job in order to afford that. And when you see how life changing that would be for many, many people,
right?
Just to be able to regularly see a dentist or to get their teeth fixed, and then to see that just be kind of like either dismissed or just like proposed and then just like completely stripped out of this bill that they're doing to appease just some like arbitrary idea of like it's cost too much and it's amazing the extent to which these rich fucks will just like completely abandon these things.
Oh, for
which
sure.
Which would be just so life-changing for people.
Yeah, I did like another story is like last year on people. I had a couple dozen people shared like their dental care nightmares, and it's like the most heartbreaking shit, man. Like people who just suffer. Like I don't know if you guys ever had needed a root canal, because I have, and like the pain that I lived with like for like 2 years, just like guzzling Advil every day, because a root canal costs like $4,000, and people just like suffer because this was when I don't really have it now to $4,000 to spend, but like this was my 20s. I was like waiting tables, like where the fuck was I gonna get $4,000 for a root canal?
If you get $4,000 in that point, you're probably not going to spend it on a root canal,
right? For sure, I'm going to spend it on beer and cocaine in my 20s. And that's, the important stuff.
God bless you.
Yeah. No, but some of them were like so fucking heartbreaking. And it's like, and people with bad teeth, like we judge people with bad teeth, and there's like a whole other thing. It's like a class signifier. And so like, I mean, I'm not saying that we do that, but people in general do that. And this is just like the one option that we have for people, dental insurance. It's like the fakest shit I've ever heard of. Like dental insurance doesn't do anything, and it's like the opposite. As bad as like medical insurance is, dental insurance is like the opposite. So like at least when you're paying your $400,000 or $500,000 a month for medical insurance, like at the very least, there's gonna be a point where if you get in a car accident and you break all your limbs and all your bones in your body, whatever, it's going to cap off at some point. It's going to be still an unaffordable amount, but it's going to, that's the idea. You won't have to spend over a certain amount. Dental insurance is like the exact opposite in that it doesn't cover the expensive stuff. All it does is like cover the very basic shit. So you'll spend, I don't know, $50, $100 a month on your dental insurance, and all you get out of it is like 2 cleanings and maybe a filling. And if you need a root canal or anything like that, it's like doesn't count towards that. It's like absolutely insane. I don't know. So I still don't have dental insurance, even though I could afford it at this point, because there's like no point to it. It's just like shoveling money into the furnace.
What did you do about the root canal?
I eventually, so I needed two at different points in my life, and I got one, and I just fucking saved up as much as I could and went on a payment plan. And then the next time I needed one, I just said, "Fuck it, pull it out." It was like $300. They just yanked it out of my skull, and it was like way in the back, so it didn't really matter. But that was no picnic too. Have you ever had a tooth pulled before? They have to like think.
Not since I was a kid.
Yeah, think about like how you or I, like let's say we were set to the task of pulling a tooth out of someone's head. Like imagine how we would do it. Like that's basically what they do. Like if I said, Jordan, you have to get a tooth out of Rob's head right now. This happens often. Actually, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
They take
the insurgent's office gets pretty wild sometimes.
They take the pliers, right, and they smash the tooth with pliers, and all the crumbs fall out, and they suck it up. So then there's like a bony nub sticking there, and what they do, like the dude literally put his leg up on the chair and had to like imagine like when you're imagine when you're getting when you're changing your tire and you gotta like loosen the bolts or whatever, and you're like like push them, and like that's how teeth are taken out. I mean, this was like 10 years ago, so perhaps they've invented.
Obviously, the memory is still very vivid as well.
Dude, wouldn't you think it would be?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, so I don't know. Dentistry is fake. It's all fake.
But that's it. It's like it's just been a sort of painful process to, going over the last however long it's been since the inauguration. I don't know. I've lost all track of time.
Right.
Almost a year. But just this idea of like, is the Biden administration, are they going to make the same mistakes that Obama made? Are they going to actually, because they're in terms of the rhetoric that they were using, it seemed like they had kind of learned some of those lessons from the ass kicking that they got in 2012. Maybe they are going to go a little bit bolder, and they did propose a lot more stuff than I think what Obama was willing to do. And then just seeing that slowly get whittled down and chiseled away at. For no reason, like to appease people in their own party. Like this is all being done under the understanding that 0 conservatives are going to vote for it, 0 Republicans are going to vote for it. They will in fact call it, communism and communist government takeover and all this stuff. And so they're just arbitrarily, as Democrats and liberals often do, arbitrarily negotiating with themselves.
Yep.
Prior to sitting down at the negotiating table with the actual who's supposed to be the opposition. And it's like, now you see these elections that just happened the other day, particularly in Virginia, you're kind of seeing what the writing on the wall is, unless some kind of fucking miracle happens. But it really does kind of seem like, regardless of what efforts they may have made to try and avoid the same fate that what happened in the early Obama years, it just seems like they're headed right exactly back in that exact direction. And they just don't seem to be too interested in doing anything to stop that from happening.
Yeah, I mean, as cynical as I am, and I think we probably all are, there was maybe a month or two there where I was like, okay, Biden looks like he was at least going to try to do some of this shit. And, of course, I was the dumbest motherfucker alive for thinking that. But I don't know, man. I mean, I think that no matter what happens, I mean, we all know this, whatever happens, like, it's going to be blamed on the left. The fucking McAuliffe losing was blamed on the left. The most
too woke. The wokeness.
The most fucking milquetoast fucking Clinton piece of shit. And that somehow that's our fault that he lost.
Because we still have to hear from James Carville.
Right.
He's riding the fucking 30-year wave of being half correct once in the fucking early 90s, right. And now we still have to hear from this motherfucker every single time that there's an election cycle.
Oh my god, that dude sucks. But yeah, so I don't know. And that's why it infuriates me when people with like libs and centrists get mad at people for harassing Cinema and Manchin and stuff. It's like, well, they're always like, well, do you think this is going to help? It's like, probably not, but like, what?
It feels good.
Yeah, I'm sure it feels good, yeah. And like, it's not going to hurt because they're not going to do this shit anyways, So, I mean, I'm happy to see that. Like, these people shouldn't have these comfortable lives that they have. Like, I'm not going to advocate for hurting them or anything, but like, they should be uncomfortable every time they go out in public. They should be told to fuck off every single second that they're outside.
Yeah, which is so perfectly exemplified in the Manchin stuff today. So this is a guy who, when he's away from his home in West Virginia, and this guy is a multimillionaire, and he makes millions off of his son's coal company and has investments in energy companies and has a direct, like, vested interest in making sure that green policies do not get enacted or are severely neutered. So he can maintain his own personal wealth and his family's wealth, and also opposing, like, regulating and pricing pharmaceuticals, because his daughter runs a pharmaceutical company, which was known for spiking the price of insulin. And this is a guy who, while he lives in D.C., lives on a yacht and drives, as we learned today, a Maserati. And there are people...
Well, it isn't a yacht. I mean, let's not...
Well, that's even the thing. An ostensibly, like, Democrat... like, writer,
I can see the cowboy hat. Yeah, I can see your cowboy hat right now. I was gonna say.
He's like, well, it's not actually a yacht; it's a houseboat. No, like, if you were familiar with boats, after a certain length, there are yachts, and that's what he lives on.
Yeah. Well, this sounds like you're pretty familiar with the yachts, there, buddy.
I dated a woman whose family lived in Massachusetts. Where are you from again?
I'm from. You wouldn't. It's from. I actually grew up on a little island. You wouldn't have heard of it. It's called Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah.
But we were partying with the Obamas the other day at the big exclusive birthday party.
Oh, you got to go to the birthday, huh?
Our invites must have got lost in the mail, but it's fine.
Yeah, we really wanted to go.
I was gonna. No, actually, I was gonna go just to see Pearl Jam, but once they canceled them playing at his birthday party, I didn't. No point.
No, but when it comes to Manchin and all the stuff we were just mentioning, Jordan, that's why I tweeted about this a while back when he was kind of still, a couple of weeks ago, and he was first kind of starting this sort of petulant act that he's been doing about ensuring that none of these things, these positive, super popular things on the agenda would go through. And I was like, well, if you were a real leader at this point, you'd be starting to threaten to throw Manchin's family in jail right now.
Right.
Why? And people got all mad. Liberals got mad. Well, that's authoritarianism, and that's like, you can't do that. But it's like, it's not even like, you're literally just talking about corruption. Like, this is a very clear, open and shut case of corruption on a number of levels, both with his family and with him himself. And it's like the idea in America of like actually holding people to account, powerful political figures, for engaging in this kind of double dealing is just unthinkable. It's like uncouth and uncivil to the idea that you would actually hold people accountable for engaging in this kind of like what should be criminal, like illegal behavior, but it's just totally normalized, totally accepted.
It's insane. It's insane making, and it's like, there's a difference between like investigating someone who your political opponent for bullshit reasons, like making shit up or spinning something that's nothing into a huge scandal, and actually just be like, just following the laws that we already have, and if Biden was this two-fisted tough guy that he likes to project himself as, he would be roughing Manchin up. I guess whenever I say shit like this, people on Twitter is like, people are like, yeah, it's because Biden doesn't want to do any of this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, probably not. Like, I don't think Biden all of a sudden became, super fucking progressive lefty or whatever, just because, in his old age, that doesn't tend to happen. People don't all of a sudden swing left at age 80. But I don't think that he wants to fucking fall on his face with all this stuff, like, I think he wants to at least do some good things, if only for burnishing his own personal reputation. So I don't agree that Biden wants to sink every single good thing, and that's not to say that he actually wants these things, but he doesn't want to eat shit on his entire fucking presidency, right?
Yeah, no, that's kind of was my thinking as well. It's just like not that anyone in the establishment of the Democratic Party has all of a sudden become these like super ultra progressives overnight, but it's just for purely cynical, self-serving reasons. Maybe they would realize that like we need to do this in order to not get our asses handed to us again.
Right.
I even think Biden was kind of aware too historically of what the historical record was going to say, and I think he got a sense that like he wanted to surpass what Obama was doing, and he wanted to be remembered like that. Like that was my kind of logic for thinking like, well, maybe they will actually do this stuff, but
they don't.
It's hard to think that when like you're pointing out, he's not even trying. He's not even really trying to push Manchin. He's just like, well, he said no, so can't do it. Move on. And it's just like, well,
like like you said, so many of these things are really popular. It's not like there's going to be some like if he expanded, Medicare or fucking cancel student loans or any of these things that he could do, particularly loans, because like he could just do that on his own, right? As far as I understand it. It would be such a fucking boon to the Democrats, even if they're only doing it for their own cynical benefit. And yet they don't even seem to be able to do things that benefit themselves besides raising money,
Part of this that we saw play out in Virginia and some parts of New Jersey and then the rest of the country was that Democrats don't have a clear message that offers an alternative to what the Republicans are, and they're running largely now on like bullshit critical race theory hysteria. And the Dems in Virginia mostly ran an anti-Trump campaign, and the tactics were just like embarrassing and laughable in retrospect, like sending tiki torch people to reinforce that Trump endorsed Youngkin, and even sending out mailers reinforcing the endorsement, like really bad, like botched the job type stuff. And the Democrats don't offer an alternative. What they were, I guess, hoping for both, midterm purposes and Biden's legacy was, let's run on reconciliation, let's run on this huge spending bill, all these great things. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that. So that's going to push Biden into, potentially executive order territory. Okay, what can he accomplish with an executive order that gives him something to run on? And one of those things that we learned this week, a report was commissioned early on in Biden's administration to evaluate and assess the legality of canceling student loan debt via executive order. And the report concludes that they have that authority. They just don't, the only thing that's holding them back now is the political will to do so. Now we have reporters covering this stuff saying like, yeah, they're quietly acknowledging that they can do it, and they just don't plan to. So that is something that would completely like unburden a huge portion of like Gen Z, or not Gen, maybe a little bit of Gen Z, but millennials and Gen X. A large segment of the workforce would have a huge weight off their shoulders, and it would increase purchasing power. It would stimulate the economy. There's so many people who can't do things because they're saddled by student loan debt. And he can do that with the stroke of a pen, and he chooses not to. And I think that's just like a perfect encapsulation of where Biden is and his administration is mentally. They carefully want to construct a legacy for him without going too far, and ultimately they still want to cater to corporate interests. And not to mention, student loan debt is a huge driver of military recruitment.
Oh, for sure. I mean, eliminating debt would be one of the most transforming things that is happening to the country in so long. And it just boggles my mind that he just, like, again, just for his own reputation, imagine how fucking beloved he would be by millions of people if he did that.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't want to. Like, the Democrats are like, they're like a guy who's like, running towards the end zone with the ball, and they're looking back at the refs like every step of the way, like, am I allowed to do this? And then they're also like looking back at the other team, like giving them a chance to fucking stop them, like they're always looking for some reason they think that they need the approval of the Republicans to do things. And then, to further torture this metaphor, then they bring in something like the fucking Senate parliamentarian, or who's the
most powerful person in America.
Right. They're always appealing.
That we all know. We all heard of this position previously.
I'll vote for her again.
Yeah. They're always like appealing to the fucking refs, being like, well, sorry, the ref said it was
the mods.
The umpire said it was a strike. So, I'd love to see someone try to diagram that metaphor I just constructed, but I think we all very easily understand what I mean, which is that, let's go Brandon, basically.
Yeah, well, and it's just they're going to go into this next election cycle as well. And it's like it's going to be it's the most important election of everyone's lifetime. Everyone's going to vote blue. And it's like people really did vote their ass off on this last election.
Yeah,
they really did. They really did. And they gave they somehow gave them this majority. They won the Senate, they won Congress, they won the White House. And just everyone's sitting there watching them arbitrarily just slash billions of dollars after all these things that would help people so much, slashing their much vaunted climate program, which I was told repeatedly during the primary. Rob, you got to check out Joe Biden. Look at that look at his platform. Right. That $1 trillion climate plan that's now being like whittled down to barely fucking anything, like especially like a drop in the bucket compared to what the United States spends in the military every year. Everyone has just been watching this whole process play out. And then it's like, especially for young people who just consistently just get fucking shafted time and time again with all of these discussions, all these priorities that young people care about are the first to be jettisoned anytime they start doing this kind of pre-negotiating routine. And it's going to be the same thing. You got to go out and vote. You got to spend 4 hours voting for Team Blue again. It's the most important election. And it's like, what possible reason would people have to continue to think that like how much more do you want us to vote for you? Right. We just voted for you a lot.
Right.
But apparently it wasn't enough. But you just need a few more senators, and then we could do the thing. We could do the good thing. And the reality is, when there is a few more senators, there's going to be someone else that's going to say that they can't do it.
Yeah.
There's going to be a couple more people that cross to the other side. Like with Obama, we referenced Obama before. Obama had 59 senators, right. And that was still apparently not enough to do any of the big things that people wanted them to do. So it's like there's no level of voting that people can do, apparently, that's going to actually lead to like meaningful change to their lives. So it's like eventually people are just going to continue to drop out of this whole process.
I
don't really blame them.
I think the midterms are going to be fucking bloodbath. And so I agree. So many people just aren't going to vote. Like, fuck it. We busted our asses to get this guy in a position to do something for us, and he didn't. And I'm just not going to go. I'm not going to go canvass anymore. I'm not going to make calls. It's like I did it last time. I got nothing for it. So fuck you. I'm taking this one off. Sitting this one out. And who could blame people for feeling that way?
Yeah,
I'll tell you who could. It's like everyone on Twitter, anytime you say shit like this, saying like, just take what we can get now and we'll regroup and don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And, we just got to get a couple more senators in there. And, it's like boggles my mind. These people are the fucking biggest marks in the world. I don't know.
Yeah, a rudimentary, I saw this a couple of different places, but kind of a rudimentary analysis from Virginia, New Jersey, and how like the margins swung from the general in some of these districts. If that were applied nationwide, people like the redistrict guy and some other like election number wonk people were estimating it could be around 40 seats lost by the Democrats, which were just, they probably lose both chambers, but like that's catastrophic. And you can't get. They just tried yesterday. We're recording on Thursday. They just tried yesterday to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and they had 50 votes, and couldn't do it because they won't kill the filibuster because of people in the Democrats in their own camp. So you have like mechanisms and ways to change it, start to address these things, like making voting easier, making it more accessible, and you can't even do that. And as a result, we're just going to hand over control to Republicans, and you have these kind of bootlickers who've like kind of formed their identity around being a Democrat, like capital D. They're proud of it. They love the party affiliation. That's their family. Trying to admonish anyone who dares question that their strategy and approach is a good one. It isn't a good one. And that, we see the same type of people reinforcing the same playbooks, like all the Clinton-era lackeys who have just consumed the airwaves for years, insisting this is what you need to do. And as Luke Savage and Jacobin put it today, when the centrists win, it's because of triangulation, and when they lose, it's the left's fault. And that's just a game that people are tired of playing. they see the pattern. Like, they don't want to be part of it. They don't want to be beaten over the head when an election goes poorly and they had nothing to do with it. But yeah, as Van Jones said, this is a wake-up call. So I think, everything's going to be good. Dems are finally going to realize that you need to win elections.
Okay. Oh, good. I feel much better.
Very cool.
Well, as one of my favorite sports business writers, Darren Rovell, once said, I feel bad for the country, but this is going to be great content either way.
Yeah. Well, and it's like we were talking about earlier as well. It's like the people see these things getting taken out of these spending packages and these proposals, and people get rightfully angry about it, and then they talk about it like, oh, you just want all the puppies and rainbows and unicorns and whatever. But like we're talking about, just like with basic things like dental health, like this would be life-changing.
Right.
Like people really underestimate how much people's lives would be completely transformed by some of these very basic things that they're just arbitrarily removing, which they have the power to enact, and they're just not doing it. And then to chastise people that see that and choose to just like disengage with this party or make the decision that this party is not really a vehicle to enact these kind of changes, and say that they just want some kind of, some fancy, like a pony or whatever they say. It's really callous. It's really demoralizing for people. And like, I think it's extra insulting when then people frame that as just throwing some kind of a tantrum, Yeah. It's just like, I don't know how people are supposed to respond to that.
Well, I'm usually a pretty depressed and dour person, but this conversation is,
man, every time.
Yeah, it's really
Jesus. Literally all our guests say this. It's like getting to be kind of
brought me to a new low.
This is the place where we all just come together and be like, for some reason, people like to listen to it. I don't know. I don't get it either.
Well, they sound like perverts to me.
Well, here's a little lighthearted thing that we can end with, Luke.
Okay.
To raise everyone's spirits a little bit. You're a Boston guy. You mentioned another famous Massachusetts family, the Kennedy family.
Oh, yes.
And they're back. Apparently, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing rumors. Not only is the son coming back, 104-year-old JFK himself, apparently. I don't know what happened with this, but was supposed to come back. I'm not sure, but
I heard that.
Congratulations to you.
I heard that at Dunkin' Donuts, kid. They said that JFK was coming back, and it sounds fucking pissy to me. I'm fucking psyched. That's like one of the stupid. I don't know. It's. I don't know.
It really is one of those moments, and in case anyone's not familiar, I'm talking about this. I guess it's like a subsect of QAnon or an offshoot who were gathering in Dealey Plaza the other day, the location of JFK's killing, because according to some prophecy, some in the sacred texts, they figured out some special date that JFK would be coming back and making Trump president again. The Kennedy family has figured fairly prominently into the QAnon stuff, particularly JFK Jr. That's been a fairly prominent thread with all that, but this is the first I had heard of like JFK Sr. still alive, coming back. He's going to make Daddy Trump president again. This was a new thing, and they were all there at Dealey Plaza waiting for it.
To be honest, I would be if that actually happened, I would be very happy. I would be psyched about it. It would mean reincarnation is real, and there's an afterlife. And I would be. It also proved that being Catholic gives you special powers,
superpowers, yeah.
Which I've always secretly believed. So if it happens, hey, if JFK Jr. comes back to life and he's got those bad bootcut 90s jeans on that he'd love to wear, and he's got the blow dry haircut still, and he's flying around in a little plane. I will be the first to admit that I was wrong and QAnon was correct. And frankly, I hope it does happen.
What did you make of some of that footage, Jordan?
I don't know. I was just like depressed, more depressed than usual. Like, this is
wow, that bad. Huh?
It's sad. Like, I feel bad for those people.
Yeah,
just like showing up. Like having like a crowd, it wasn't colossal, but it wasn't small. There was probably like 100 or so, maybe more people there. Like who seemed like they truly believed that this guy was going to come back from the dead or was never dead or whatever.
Yeah, but they weren't coming back from the dead. They both faked their deaths so they could go undercover to fight the deep state for several decades.
Of course. Never mind that we have
logic.
Footage and eyewitnesses of this guy getting his head blown off. But it's so fucking sad, man.
And why did they love JFK? He was a fucking JFK Jr. He was like a lib elite. I don't get it.
I think, and I don't totally get it either, because I don't think there's a whole lot in common with the Kennedy family and the Trump family. I think it has something to do with like the deep state and like positioning Trump as somehow a victim of the deep state and someone who was like fighting back against the deep state covertly. I mean, that's a big part of what QAnon is. And obviously that's a big part of the conspiracy around JFK's death, that he was assassinated by like interest within the United States government.
Yeah, except
the national
that's
security
real.
establishment.
That shit's real though.
Well, I agree. Yeah. I guess that's the similarity, is that they think, well, the deep state took out this guy. The deep state's going after our guy. So that's the kind of connection there. But yeah, I think it's tenuous. I would say that would be tenuous to me.
I don't pay too close attention to that world just for my own sanity, but what was the reaction? I know, Rob, you've been doing JFK Truth on your Twitch stream recently, especially because those documents are now, not being released. What was the reaction to that? Did that play into it at all?
Oh, I imagine so. I mean, it's really a lot of it is very typical cult stuff, right? And it's like everything becomes evidence of the conspiracy that you believe. And in that case, that is actually strong. Like that's some legitimate evidence that does throw some very real kindling on that kind of fire. But I think the most important thing too is that whenever these prophecies fail to come true, that's the whole history of QAnon, which started shortly after Trump was elected, and was that Trump's election was supposed to trigger the mass arrests of the Clintons and the libs and the whole arrest of the deep state and draining the swamp and all that stuff. That was supposed to happen in like 2017. And they've just continually shifted the goalposts every time these dates, these prophecy dates come and go. They, instead of saying like taking a step back and reevaluating, maybe we were kind of misled on some of this stuff. It's that very cult-like phenomenon when prophecy fails. And all of these dates are just, instead of like re-examining that, they're all just doubling and tripling and quadrupling down and believing even harder, and then just moving the goalposts and transitioning to the next big date that's going to come where Daddy Trump is going to be reinstalled and all the bad guys are going to be rounded up and everything. It really is, though, an expression, I think, of the powerlessness that people feel, which is a very real phenomenon when you feel like you can't really have impact in the political process. You can't have impact in the economy or any of these big things, these big systems that control your lives. And I sort of understand to an extent why people fall back into this stuff and and soothe themselves with this fantasy that the big strong man is going to come and make all the bad guys go away, and he's going to fix all the problems, and then all this stuff's going to happen. It's just because people are so beaten down by, years and years and years and decades of things just progressively getting worse and having less power over their lives and less power over society, that they're starting to reach these fucking bizarre conclusions and reach out for these possible savior figures, no matter how absurd or ridiculous it is. And it's the scary thing is that it's only going to continue to progressively get worse and weirder as the very real crises that we're all dealing with the climate and housing and all the economy and all the very real crises are going to continue. I just feel like as that continues, everything is just going to continue to get dumber and dumber and dumber and crazier. It just seems like there's no escape from this.
I thought we were supposed to be ending on a happy note.
Yeah, I can't do it. This is my only speed.
I got one.
Okay.
Luke, you're a food service veteran,
yes,
which makes you a troop.
That's right. Yes.
Literally braver than the troops and the cops.
Yes, honestly, dealing with unruly customers for like no pay is worse than Have you seen
more valuable
this?
To society as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Public service, frontline first responders. The story about Salt Bae, I know you guys remember him.
Yeah.
The viral sensation who sprinkled flaky salt over his elbow and onto your food. His now, his restaurants have been like social media sensations ever since those first videos went viral, and The items, were another cycle. The price of the items, which people were shocked to learn that you're overpaying for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But one of his restaurants just had a job listing posted for a chef. And this is a restaurant that serves, $1,000+ steak and side items of like mashed potatoes and corn for like $16 a pop. Certainly overpriced. And the hourly wage for this chef was $16.
Jesus Christ.
And I was curious if you guys saw that and what your reaction is and what your thoughts are generally of Salt Bae, who we're starting a beef. Beef has been kicked off. We're beefing with Salt Bae.
Hell yeah.
I see. I'm only vaguely aware of his thing, but there was some really dumb analogy to like going to a restaurant like Salt Bae and buying an NFT that I saw the other day. It's like basically you're spending $1,000 on the steak so you can have a photo of that you took $1,000 steak. You ate $1,000.
You get the Instagram photo,
right? And I don't know. I think the whole thing is fucked up. I think that it's people are just trying to be a flex, and I don't even understand why that's a flex. Like I could understand maybe going to. Like me, my close personal friend Gavin Newsom and I like to go to the French Laundry. Like,
it's great.
Yeah. Like I can understand that, but I just don't understand these like touristy trap places. And I also feel like I want to point out while I'm talking about this, I just was looking at my computer and I'm seeing a picture of something called a bread sandwich, which I'm sure Rob knows what that is.
That's the Quebec thing, right?
Right. And
that sounds British to me. That's a slander, actually.
No, I'll tell you what it is. It's an entire white loaf cut long, filled with ham salad, chicken salad, egg salad, covered in a generous coating of cheese whiz and olives. And apparently, it's a Quebec
sounds fucking repulsive
delight, and it looks fucking repulsive. But I respect it more than I do Salt Bae's restaurant. And to be honest, I'm looking at this.
I'm not familiar with that particular item.
Yeah, right. He has us in the break room all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure you know.
You heat it up in the microwave, it drives everyone crazy.
Oh boy, that's the one office faux pas. You can't heat up your bread sandwich in the microwave.
All right. Well, speaking of which, I'm gonna go eat some fucking $10 steak right now. So I'm gonna.
Hell yeah. Well, Luke, thanks so much for joining us, man. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, it was always fun to talk to you guys, and hopefully we'll see you in person at some point. And, I'm glad we could solve all the country's issues in the space of an hour.
Problems are fixed. That's right.
All right, guys.
Where can people subscribe to Hellworld?
Just you can find it at luke.substack.com. And, it's, if you liked what we talked about today, it's basically how it goes.
Nice. Luke, thank you
for joining us.
It's a big
depressing slog for everyone.
That's right, buddy. Thanks again, guys. I'll talk to you.
Yeah, take care, Luke.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Insurgents. Please remember to subscribe over at theinsurgents.substack.com. Find the podcast on all your favorite podcast apps. And please remember to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It's very helpful and we appreciate it a lot. But please, again, don't mention Ken Klippenstein in the review. He is banned from the show. It's a lifetime ban, so please do not mention him in the review. And we'll be back later this week with more of the content that you know and love. Goodbye.